Hey everyone! Welcome to Be the Change. My name is Lily Mott, and today I'm going to be talking about how change comes when you never lose hope. My guest this week is Pareen Mhatre, and she is on the board of directors and working with Improve the Dream, which is an organization advocating for documented dreamers who grow up as dependents of long-term visa holders, but then they age out and are faced with self-deportation at the age of 21. As a documented dreamer herself, Pareen is very passionate about this issue, and I learned so much through talking with her. So, without further ado, let's get started with this episode featuring Pareen Mhatre.
So my name is Pareen Mhatre, and I am a member of a group called Improve the Dream. It is a youth-led advocacy organization that advocates for children of long-term visa holders who age out of their statuses at 21 and have no feasible pathway to citizenship afterwards. I myself am a fourth-year student at the University of Iowa studying biomedical engineering and minoring in business administration. I was born in India, and I moved to the United States when I was 4 months old. So I've been in Iowa for most of my life. Go Hawks! And yeah, I grew up on a dependent status, and so it was a very alienating experience, and I didn't know anyone else that had gone through what I was going through. And it wasn't until March of 2021 where I joined Improve the Dream, and I found a community there, and I truly felt like I could not only advocate for myself and my situation, but it made me realize that there were so many other kids going through what I had gone through, and I didn't want that to happen to anyone else.
I think it's so inspiring that you're doing this work to prevent others from feeling that same alienation that you felt growing up. And I think it's so true that so many people don't understand what it would be like to be in that situation. And I would love if you could just tell me a little bit more about your background and what it was like growing up as a documented dreamer. Can you just tell me some about that part of your story?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I was on a dependent status for almost all my life. That basically means as a child, I wasn't able to enter into a lot of competitions, or as a high school student, I wasn't able to get a driver's license very quickly. It was a multiple months long process that was really hard for me and my family. And it seems like such a small thing, not being able to drive, but it really just builds on top of one another. Documented dreamers like myself weren't able to get any sort of federal aid. We aren't qualified for most scholarships. And on top of that, we have no work authorization. We can't work at our local coffee shop. It was just really hard because you'd hear your peers say, "Oh, I got this job, I got this research position, I'm going to get paid XYZ. I can qualify for this internship, which is amazing." And it's like we grew up in the same boat, we went to the same schools, yet because of a piece of paper, we're different. And in addition to that, the struggles of switching over to visas when you age out is just, it takes a toll on your entire family. I remember I switched over to a student visa, which is what most documented dreamers do after they turn 21. They either have to go back to the country where their passport's from, or they take a leap and they try to apply for the student visa. And even getting that is so difficult. The chances are honestly not, they're not in our favor. And it's it's a very expensive process as well. And so there's that. And then there's, being an international student, having to, it seems like we're going through the same hoops our parents went through. And then once we graduate, there's the added struggle of applying for an H-1B work visa, which is based on a lottery system. So in our minds, it feels like the struggle never ends. It's, we're either applying for a visa or we're extending our stay by a little bit. And if we don't get a visa, we're going back to the country where we lived in when we were babies. So it's just a very hard and isolating experience. Um, and I remember, especially during uh, COVID in 2020 and in the early months of 2021, like many young people, I was also struggling mentally. And on top of that, my immigration status was a huge burden that I felt like I was carrying. I and I At this point, I didn't know a lot of people that were in my situation. So it was really hard during that time to continue on with life and continue on with school. Fortunately, I was able to find Improve the Dream, where I felt like the members in that group really gave me a voice. They really inspired me to speak up and to talk about my story as well as everyone else's. And I feel so privileged to to do this because I my heart really aches for those documented dreamers who don't know that there is a community, because we're here, we're really trying to push for different pieces of legislation, we're trying to advocate, we're trying to build support, both internally and externally. And it I really feel like I have a voice, and I'm very grateful.
I'm so glad that you were able to find that community and connect with people who had similar experiences and who are in similar positions. And I'd love to know more about Improve the Dream as well. Can you tell me some about the organization's mission and what you're doing with the organization?
Of course. So I joined the group last March of 2021, and I was very grateful to be able to testify in front of the House Judiciary Subcommittee on Immigration and Citizenship, and I was able to tell my story to all these lawmakers. And it was, I mean, it was the first time where I had obviously done this, or anyone I knew had done this. There was no like um there was no one that I could really go to for advice, but um I was fortunate enough to have the support of the group. In addition to that, the group was also able to support, or I guess help introduce a piece of legislation called America's Children Act. It is a bipartisan bill that's been introduced in both the House and the Senate. In fact, I think it is the most bipartisan immigration bill in both chambers, which is very exciting. But basically, that the bill is, I mean, pretty targeted. It affects one specific group, which is our group, and it's a pretty small bill. But just to give like a very quick summary, essentially, if you are a child of a long-term visa holder, you've been living in the United States for 10 consecutive years, and if you have gone to an American education institution and have graduated from a four-year school, you're eligible to apply for a green card. And not many people know that even just applying for a green card is a big deal. Yes, waiting in that line, waiting in the backlog that has contributed to our current issue is very painful for all families, but just applying for a green card is a big deal. So in addition to that legislation, we have also been able to gather support on both sides of the aisle, which is not only exciting, but it really shows the country that there are parts of immigration where both parties can come together and agree on. It's just a matter of when. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what we've been doing. And other than that, we meet with a lot of congressional offices, various advocacy groups, different policymakers to tell our stories, to help advocate for this bill, and as well and for all the other documented dreamers that are going through what we have gone through.
Definitely. And you've spoken so much about the alienation you felt and how you felt alone in your situation. And you're doing all of this work to ensure that others don't have to feel the same way. But if you could share one piece of advice with all of the young documented dreamers out there, what would you want to tell them?
All I can say is we're all in the same boat. I have been in their shoes. I mean, I remember coming home from elementary school, middle school, high school, or even college, coming home and just crying because there there was and still is so much uncertainty in my future, and I felt alone. There was no one I could talk to except for my parents, who, while they were supportive, obviously didn't completely understand. I know that it's tough, and I know that uh, it's honestly wrong, but I promise you that trying to speak up, sharing your story, it does more than what you would think. I think education and raising awareness to your issue, to your story, regardless of what you're talking about, what the issue is, I think that is a huge first step that anyone can take. And it all starts from there.
Okay, so I have one last question for you, and it's kind of along similar lines, but there are so many young people out there, high school students, college students, who want to create change and they want to make a difference, but they may not know how to get started. Do you have any advice for those people who may be listening?
I think the most important thing is to start in your own community, whether it is your local community like your town, or for me, my community was documented dreamers and immigration, or any issue that you believe in. Start there, and change doesn't happen overnight. I mean, there are so many people who have dedicated their entire lives to various causes and issues, and I think that's something we all have to realize, is that it definitely doesn't happen overnight. But just starting within what you know and what you're comfortable in, make connections, talk to people, listen to people's stories, and never lose hope. I think hope is the only thing that, it sounds cheesy and very cliche to say, but I think, if we lose hope in whatever we believe in, it's nothing's ever going to get done.
I learned so much through this conversation with Pareen, and I'm so grateful that she is sharing her experience in order to raise awareness about the issues that documented dreamers face in the United States. Pareen is doing all of this work so that other young people and future generations don't have to face the same challenges and worries that she and her family had to face. I loved Pareen's last piece of advice when she said that we should never lose hope. I think that's a common theme throughout Pareen's life when she talked about the uncertainty she faced when it came to jobs and visas and school, but through all of those challenges, she never lost hope, and now she is actively working to make a better future for others. I think we can all keep Pareen's story and her words of advice in mind, especially when facing challenges, because change comes when you never lose hope. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and you can connect with Pareen on Instagram at Pareen Mhatre, and you can also find Improve the Dream at Improve the Dream on Instagram as well. If you want to talk about anything I mentioned, please reach out to me by email at lily@bethechangepodcast.org or on Instagram at bethechangepodcast. Tune in for my next episode, but until then, be the change you wish to see in the world. Bye, guys.